Is a
weeks that they've been gone, including their life mission, and for some, their hair. How'd it go in there today?
It was really good, really calm, really quiet, really laid back today.
You thought they handled it well for you guys?
I think so. They're helping us heal, and there was a lot of tears, there was a lot of pain, but they're helping us heal.
Lots of counseling, and it was nice to be with everybody again. And the quicker we get back into the things, the better. And the therapy dogs helped a lot. That was nice. And the teachers are just being really supportive and helpful, and all the students. And we're just coming back together as a family again.
It was hard walking into my classrooms again and seeing my teachers and my friends, and also walking into my classroom where I lost my friend and just seeing her desk there empty and knowing that she'll never be back.
How will you cope with that?
I'll just have to, distract myself and try to move on and know that she would want me to live my life, live a happy life, and I know that she's in a better place now.
Ever since everything happened, Joaquin, obviously, he had bleached blonde hair. And so I just looked myself in the mirror and I'm just like, I kind of want to do something. I kind of want to make a change, I just bleached my hair. And it shows, we're remembering Joaquin and who he was, because everyone knew him as the kid with, blonde hair. He dyed his hair blonde, and we're just like, okay, that's a good way to remember him and respect him.
So how are you guys going to move forward?
I think I'm just going to be more positive and live my life a little more full to my own standards every day, for them, instead of letting it drag me down.
That's beautiful.
I've become an activist in every single sense of the word. I don't want this to happen to another school. Simple as that. I'm moving forward in this way. I'm going to make sure that I feel safe, my friends feel safe. I want to work with people. We're going to make sure we talk about mental health. We're going to make sure we talk about common sense gun control. We're going to make sure that something actually changes in this country.
Do you have the energy to keep it up?
Yes, I do. And the NRA and everyone is betting that we won't have the energy, but we will have the energy. We're teenagers.
And what happens to the movement now that you're back at school? Obviously, you guys are kids. You're going to be busy. You're going to have schoolwork. So what happens now?
It's going to be difficult because we're obviously in school and we do a lot of stuff out of school. But our teachers are behind us and they know what we're doing and they're really helpful with that. So I think because we have the support with our teachers and our parents, it won't be that much of a challenge to keep working on the movement. We want change to happen. I know it normally doesn't happen fast. Obviously, there are more things that can be done. So we're taking it one step at a time.
This wouldn't be happening without you guys. Do you feel a sense of satisfaction?
We don't feel like some people call us heroes, some people call us we're doing this, but we're just doing this for us so it doesn't happen to my younger brother who's 12 years old who's going to come here in 2 years. We just don't want this to happen to anyone else. So I think that's really what we're fighting for.
I liked what that one kid said when I said, how are you going to have the energy for this? They're going to be back in school now, And he said, of course we're going to have the energy. We're teenagers.
It's true. And also, look, they are the impetus. They are the motivation. They are not the end point. They shouldn't be held to account for the solutions and getting them enforced. That's for others to do. For sure. And I think they know that. But they do still feel energized and activated, even going back to school. So obviously we will follow their progress. You have to. Otherwise, people will forget. Definitely, and that would be tragic. So thanks to our international viewers for watching. For you, CNN Newsroom is next. For our U.S. viewers, New Day continues right now.
Hope was one of the people he really, really trusted. And he's going to feel like he's on an island.
This looks to me like more evidence of a White House in disarray.
The president may have berated her for being honest.
She was talking about leaving. I wouldn't blame her.
He's undermined Attorney General Sessions from the very beginning.
And now we know he tried to oust Jeff Sessions.
I wouldn't stay at all. I wouldn't be anybody's whipping boy.
The president can fire the Attorney General, but he can't do it for corrupt motives. That's what I think Mueller's trying to get at.
Take the guns first, go through due process second.
Due process must be respected, and we stress this to the president.
There is no other issue out there like background checks. It works, people want it, and we can't do it.
But you have a different president now.
This is New Day with Chris Cuomo and Allison Camerata.
Good morning. Welcome to your new day. We begin with the chaos unraveling in the West Wing. One of the president's most trusted, longest-serving aides, Hope Hicks, a abruptly announcing she is resigning. CNN has learned President Trump did berate his communications director after she admitted to congressional investigators that she tells, quote, white lies on his behalf. Also this morning, Attorney General Jeff Sessions is fighting back after another very public attack by the president. It comes as the Washington Post reports special counsel Bob Mueller is investigating whether the president's efforts to push out Sessions last summer plays into a pattern that could be construed as obstruction of justice.
And there's another explosive headline about the president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. The New York Times is reporting that Kushner received hundreds of millions of dollars in loans for his own family business after meeting with financial executives inside the White House who may have wanted jobs. This raises new concerns about conflicts of interest. And President Trump stunning Republicans after saying that he supports comprehensive gun control, to the dismay of many of the GOP and, of course, the NRA. So we have all of this covered for you. Let's begin with Abby Phillips. She is live at the White House. What's the latest, Abby?
Good morning, Allison. Well, the stunning departure of Hope Hicks, one of the president's closest aides and the White House communications director, is just one of many things happening this week that have left the White House reeling, including this Mueller investigation that seems to be closing in on the president's inner circle.
President Trump growing increasingly isolated after the abrupt resignation of one of his closest advisors, White House Communications Director Hope Hicks. Hicks is the fourth in that post to step down since Mr. Trump took office a year ago.
Hope was one of the people he really, really trusted. So with her leaving, there's only a handful left, and he's going to feel like he's on an island.
The White House attempting to downplay the shocking announcement, insisting that Hicks has been thinking about leaving for weeks. But Hicks's departure came one day after she testified before a House committee as part of their Russia probe, conceding that at times she's told white lies for President Trump. A source tells CNN's Aaron Burnett that this admission upset the president, who berated Hicks after her nearly 9 hours of testimony. A former Trump campaign aide telling CNN that special counsel Robert Mueller's team has been inquiring about Hicks's remarks to the New York Times shortly after the election, denying any contact between the campaign and Russian officials, a statement that has proven to be false. Only a handful of President Trump's original inner circle are now left in the White House, as scrutiny over the president's son-in-law and senior advisor Jared Kushner continues to grow. The New York Times reporting that two companies loaned Kushner's family real estate business more than $500 million after meeting with Kushner at the White House.
You're seeing Jared Kushner meeting with executives in the White House, and then sometime after those meetings, the companies that those executives work for, run, or help to run are giving very sizable mortgages to his company.
The Times reports that Kushner still owns the vast majority of his interest in the company, but a spokesman for his attorney insists that Kushner has taken no part in any business, loans, or projects with and for the Kushner companies since joining the White House. Sources tell CNN that Kushner is worried that everyone in the West Wing is out to get him after having his top-secret clearance stripped by Chief of Staff John Kelly. All of this as the Mueller probe intensifies. The Washington Post reporting that Mueller's team is looking into whether President Trump's efforts to oust and intimidate Attorney General Jeff Sessions last summer amounts to obstruction of justice.
I am disappointed in the Attorney General. He should not have recused himself almost immediately after he took office.
The Post adding that the president has privately referred to Sessions as Mr. Magoo, a cartoon character who is elderly, myopic, and bumbling. President Trump lashing out at Sessions again, calling his approach to investigating alleged surveillance abuses disgraceful. Sessions dining publicly with the other top members of the Justice Department Wednesday night after firing back at the president's latest attack in a rare statement. As long as I am the Attorney General, I will continue to discharge my duties with integrity and honor, and this department will continue to do its work in a fair and impartial manner.
Well, just a few minutes ago, President Trump responded on Twitter to the National Rifle Association after the back and forth over his extraordinary meeting with bipartisan lawmakers yesterday. The president wrote many ideas, some good and proven targets of killers. After many years, a bill should emerge, respect Second Amendment. Now, the reason the president is saying this is because last night the NRA sent out a statement calling yesterday's meeting in which the president said, take away the guns first and respect rights later. They said it was good TV TV, but bad policy. Republicans are also pushing back hard on that proposal that came from the president's own mouth. So we'll see where this goes today, Allison.
Do I look like Allison to you? No, Abby, thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right, let's talk about all the turmoil in the West Wing with Anthony Scaramucci. He was the White House communications director for 10 days, replaced by Hope Hicks, but knows very well what the dynamic, what Hope Hicks meant to President Trump. How big is this?
It's 11 days. All right, let's start.
11 days. Fake news.
Right. Finally with 11 days.
11 days, but you were relevant before that period. You're relevant after it. You know the man. You know the vibe. How big is this?
I worked on the campaign a long time.
Right.
And I was also on the executive transition team of the
Absolutely.
committee. So,
I remember it well. How big is this?
Well, I think it's a big departure in the sense that this is one of the president's closest friends, aides, loyalists, somebody that understands the heartbeat of the president, understands his personality, and also is, she's incredibly good at guiding people. And I will tell you this about Hope. And Washington's a rough place. We both know that. There's not a malicious bone in Hope's body. I mean, she's just a wonderful person, always trying to do the right thing, cares about everybody, not interested in the conflict, not interested in the ego rub and the internet bashing that I experienced or other people have experienced.
Now, on the plus side, people...
It's a big loss for the president.
People close to the president say the untold value of Hope Hicks wasn't about communications. It was about external communications. It was internal. Her ability to say to people, do not come at the president this way on this. He's angry about this. He doesn't want to be told about that. And that was very valuable for people trying to negotiate his mood around him.
I think some of that's probably true, but here's the other thing is that, I think people always felt that she was very fair and very honest. So if you went to her with something and you said, okay, what do you think of this? She would give you a very honest interpretation. It was none of that political nonsense or trying to, sense the tea leaves of the situation. So I have an enormous amount of respect for her. She's going to have a phenomenal career. My agent called me last night. He's like, you got to help me get Hope as a client. That sort of thing. I mean, she's gonna do anything she wants.
I'm sure that all of you guys will find avenues to success after being part of this situation. But on the negative side, she says that she did tell some lies for the president. She said that there was no communications between anyone from Trump and Russians. She underplayed the situation with that meeting and the drafting of the response there, too. The Rob Porter thing was a debacle of epic proportions.
So let's unpack each one of those things. Okay, but let's start with the white lie. So I would submit to your viewers or anybody in America or around the world, tell me the person that hasn't told a white lie. I'll identify that person as the biggest liar in the room. And so here's what happens in Washington that I absolutely can't stand. She's in a closed-door session. They're asking her stuff. It's under oath. You know how important that is. So do I. The integrity of every sentence, every syllable. They asked her if she told any white lies. She said yes, probably. I don't know. I wasn't there. And then they pick up the phone, Chris, and they drop a dime on her. Okay, it's just totally unfair. It's a closed session and in strict confidence. And so now they're trying to colorize this woman who's an extremely gifted professional as a liar. And so I submit it back to everybody else. Hold a mirror to your face and tell me that you haven't told a white lie, because I don't believe it, okay?
Well, fine, but in her capacity,
let's go to the next position.
But qualifying your critique of that is the idea that she said nobody on this team met with any Russians. We know that's untrue, and she should have known it was untrue when she said it.
Okay, well, I don't know.
I don't count that as a white lie.
Okay, so I don't know the exact facts of that situation, whether she knew it or she didn't know it, so I can't really address that. What I can address is her integrity.
She said it to the Times 2 days after the election. She knew.
I got it. And Maggie's here, and Maggie will be able to address that. She'll be able to tell you, call a ball and strike on that. What I can do, though, is I can step back after working with her for 2.5 years and a pretty good evaluator of talent. Now, sometimes I am colorful about my evaluation of these people, but I've been mostly right about these people. You just take a look at what's gone on.
And you think she was one of the good ones. I get it.
Great. High integrity,
but what
very
about the
good
Rob
person.
Porter situation? She should have known.
Rob
if I'm
Porter
involved with this guy, I can't be involved.
I hold the White House Chief of Staff accountable for that.
Kelly, you hold accountable.
No question, because he had the information related to Porter, and I don't understand why he would allow Hope to date Porter if he's got that information.
How can she keep him from dating?
No, my point is, come on. He had the information. He tried to cover up the information. He tried to get other people inside the White House to cover up the information for him.
You believe Kelly covered up the information about the...
I do.
Because that's not what the White House says. The White House says as soon as he found out, he acted on it.
Right. Well, I don't believe that.
Is that another white lie?
Well, you got to ask him. Have him sit in the white chair and ask him if it's a white lie or not. You'll be able to figure it out quickly. But, you know, the Rob Porter situation for me, I liked Rob. You know, I've been asked even by the president, did I see any of that indication in Rob? I didn't. But there was an FBI dossier on Rob, and people knew about it. And so, you know, look, I mean, look.
So how does Kelly survive then? Why was he allowed? Why didn't he get the berating that Hope Hicks got?
This is how it works, okay? It's going to be up for the president to decide that, okay? I guess he's an honorable Marine, and so he's got to look at himself in the mirror and say what he knew and when he knew it. But I'll tell you what I don't like about it, okay? I talked a little bit of smack about two guys that we were trying to get rid of. He fires me in 5 seconds. These guys are smacking up their wives, and he's trying to figure out a way to keep them inside the White House. So it's very dishonest to me.
So is it personal? Is it a personal grievance that's motivating you, or do you think, as a matter of honor and duty, Kelly needs to go?
It's a cultural grievance because I've sat in this white chair with you over the 6 months after he fired me and said nothing but good things about him. I have no problem with him firing me. Everybody has an opportunity and the right to change their staff, particularly when they're the chief of staff. But this is a cultural thing. Okay, the morale inside the White House, you're a great reporter. You've got great reporters on staff here. The morale's terrible. And the reason why the morale's terrible is that the rule by fear and intimidation does not work in a civilian environment. And so here we are. It's messed up. It'll be up to the president to figure out if he wants to fix it or not. If he doesn't,
well, the question is whether or not the president
is
contributing to the turmoil.
I predict more departures.
You predict more departures.
There'll be more departures.
So you are subscribing to something that's bubbling up here, and I want to hear Maggie's take on this as well. There is an Ides of
Trump loyalists and people that are close to the president. I see the fact that John has denied access to the White House of the president's strongest loyalists, myself included. I get invited to go to the White House. He's got me blocked on the wave system. You know,
what does that mean, bad morale? Because, by the way,
I think it's a mistake going into a midterm election and into another presidential election where you've got Trump loyalists that want to help the president. I could care less that I got fired, okay? I'm not going to move off of my friendship with the president or my support of the president's agenda. But now, what are you going to do? You're going to block me from getting, if someone wants to see me inside the White House, you're going to block me?
When you talk about morale, what does that mean? What do you think is going on?
Morale, there's a fear, culture of intimidation. People afraid to talk to each other.
Coming from the president? They're afraid of the president?
No, I think it's the chief of staff. I think there's a culture of fear inside the White House, and people are afraid to talk to each other.
Because Kelly's supposed to bring order, it's supposed to be a calming influence. You say no.
Well, when you say order, there's a martial order, and then there's order where there's like good harmony. Okay, there's two different types of order. There's a lot of different ways you can describe order, but sometimes order is actually not a good word.
Do you think that Kushner and Kelly can exist in the same White House for long?
I hope so. Okay, because Jared is a very valuable contributor to that White House. He had a broad portfolio. He's a very smart guy. You know, I have an enormous amount of respect for him. And by the way, here's the other thing. He's worked on this campaign / transition / presidency for a very long period of time. He knows the president very well. Obviously, he's a family member. We don't have to state that, but I'll state it. But he's a very good guy. And so the notion of knocking him down a peg and then the way they're treating him in the press, you know, I don't like it.
Well, Kelly's the one who knocked him down a peg. He's the one who pulled the clearance.
I'm not a big fan of it, okay? My impression...
You don't think they should have pulled his clearance?
I don't know, but my impression is, from talking to people very close to Jared, that he believes that he has the ability to get that clearance. But I think there needs to be an examination as to why he's not getting it.
Would you take that meeting with Apollo Capital? If on the outside you were working a deal for a loan of that kind of money?
So I'm going to answer it in two ways, okay? I probably wouldn't have taken the meeting, but I understand why Jared took the meeting. And let me just explain, here's the problem now for business people that go into the White House. The system is set up really to block business people. I had to sell my company to get the OPL job, okay, a $228 million company, which has now been tied up in CFIUS for 15 months, okay? So that's
CFIUS is the vetting administration that looks at those kinds of deals.
I sold it to a large cap global company, happens to be based in China. So now I have to wait 15 months for regulatory approval or disapproval, okay? Never asked for a favor. I just wanted the process to start. But as it relates to being a business person, Jared had probably loans outstanding from those companies prior to his arrival inside the White House. And so now you're in a very tough spot because of the way the rules and ethics are made. They're literally designed, Chris, to block entrepreneurs and business leaders from entering the system. Lawyers, academics, people that don't have strong intertwined business ties, it's a very different situation.
Right, but
for
one,
them
you know that there's
a military general,
right,
or
but you know there's good reason for that.
Money or any business.
The good reason for that, Anthony, is exactly what we're seeing. 184. Look, you know Apollo Capital very well. That is an unusual bridge loan, $184 million that they put out. The guy wanted to work by the reporting on their own portfolio. Okay. That's an unusual one. It's a healthy one. The guy had interest in working in the administration. You come and you meet in your capacity as a representative of the United States government, and then you allow that to happen. Citicorp, same deal. You allow that to happen.
When you analyze these things the way and you characterize them the way you just did, okay. I understand the point.
Semblance of impropriety is the standard for ethical conflict.
I understand the point that you're making. I understand the issues around conflict. But I'm saying something that's way broader than even Jared Kushner or
tons
Apollo.
of business people work in there before. You can put your shares in things. You can divest. You can do different things if you want to serve the public.
It's Chris
Paulson. When he came in and it took us through the entire depression.
Okay, well, hold on a second. Paulson's in a publicly traded company.
Right.
Very liquid, very deep liquidity in that stock, and you can let go of that thing without, quote-unquote, SIFI's approval, none of the other nonsense. Jared and his family are
Gary
tied
Cohn?
into Goldman Sachs, very deep liquid stock.
Trump?
Okay, he's on a different standard.
Yeah, and he hasn't been transparent at all about it. If the rest of you guys acted the way the president did, you would have never been given your permission.
Hold on a second, but he's at a different standard. Look at what the law is. Okay, he is the one exception in that whole system. He could literally run the Trump organization and the Oval Office at the same time and be above the ethical fray.
No, he wouldn't be above the ethical fray. He'd be above the legal fray.
Okay, he wouldn't be above your ethical fray, but at the end of the day,
you think you want a president running a private business?
Well, the American people had to decide that, right? They voted him in. They did recognize
said he would have nothing to do with his private business anymore.
He really hasn't.
Come on. How can you say that? He spends most of his time at Trump Properties.
Are you hanging out with him?
Huh?
He spends most of his time at Trump Properties because he owns the properties. It's like going to your own vacation.
But I'm saying look, the idea that he has nothing to do with his brand, all of this is an extension of brand for him. Come on, you know that.
Okay. No, you know that because of the way you're insinuating it, okay? I know the kids very well.
He won't show his taxes. He won't open any of the books of any of his transactions.
Look, he looked at the situation with Governor Romney. When Governor Romney showed his taxes, poor Mitt Romney had a small Cayman Islands account. He built his career, made himself unbelievably financially independent, and they railed on him for his Cayman Islands account. And then they started these negative campaign advertisements about that he gave a woman cancer in the middle of Michigan. So this is what happens in our society. This happens in our politics. You can dislike the president. He's a very good campaign strategist. The decision not to put out his very complicated tax structure and system was probably a good one because it took off the table all of that negative activity.
Yeah, but what about truth and transparency to people? You think we're too dumb to figure out his taxes?
You got his taxes?
No. If I had them, we wouldn't be having this conversation. I would have had a bunch of experts go over it and outline any issues.
Here we go again. Okay, the people voted. They looked at the president.
They didn't have full information.
Warts and all, but they had full information.
And now we're steep in an investigation
Chris,
that
let me
largely
finish.
is looking at exactly the things they don't know about.
They had full information that they didn't have full information. Okay, they had full
information that they didn't have full information.
That's exactly right.
No, I don't think that's the way it works. I don't think people voted saying, well, I know I don't know the truth about this guy, but I'll vote for him.
40 years, people divulged their taxes. 40 years prior, they didn't. This candidate made a decision not to. Am I going to vote for him, yes or no? Oh, I'm going to vote for him. He's the 45th.
But it's just not fair to assume that you can't know what you don't know, Anthony. So
you're missing my point. You're missing my point. They knew that they didn't know that, and if that's a red letter item for them, then they didn't vote for him.
Right. It's just an unfair standard.
If they were willing to overlook that and take the entire package. American people want reform, Chris. They don't like the swamp.
But they're getting more of the same and worse. He was supposed to drain the swamp. He was supposed to bring in the best.
Well,
and look at what we're dealing with, how he sweats talent, how many just comms directors he's gone through.
Maybe it's not drainable.
All the ethical problems.
Maybe it's a gold-plated hot tub. Maybe it's not drainable. Okay, we'll have to figure that out. But the system the way it is right now, American people don't like it. Okay, and so the reason why he's going to win re-election is that he represents a change and a possible disruption to that system. And maybe that system can't be disrupted, okay, because we've evacuated most of the Trump loyalists out of the White House. We don't allow access to most of the Trump loyalists to come into the White House. And so maybe the system itself is so powerful. Maybe the immunological system around the swamp is so powerful that it will reject a disruptive move to change the system and make the system fairer and more accountable to the American
people. Or maybe adding a virus into that system
we'll have to see.
Wasn't the change appropriate change mechanism. Maybe he'll have to try something else. But last word on this. You do believe
he's doing well. He's done a good job on the economic policy.
Wall Street's doing well. Time will tell how the policies manifest.
The wages are up, brother.
There are some indications of it. We'll see. I got reports. Everybody wants
my 11-day short stint. Okay, I was trained in economy.
I know you were.
You look at the real wages. The real wages. The data represents real economic activity for the average American person.
I just want to end on this word. You do believe that we should be open to more people leaving the administration.
If the current situation and the current culture inside the administration stays exactly the way it is, if there's literally no change, there will be a lot more departures. Yeah, the morale is at an all-time low, and it's trending lower.
Anthony Scaramucci, thank you for coming on short notice. Appreciate your perspective as always. Allison.
Okay, Chris, joining us now is CNN political analyst and New York Times White House correspondent Maggie Haberman. She broke the news of Hope Hicks's resignation. Maggie, great to have you here on set with us. Let's just start there. Give us a reality check in terms of what we just heard Anthony Scaramucci say. Is morale at an all-time low in the White House?
Yes, reality check is yes. That is, it is really, really bad there. In some ways, if you talk to staffers, they will say there are things that John Kelly made better, but in a lot of other ways, things were vastly unimproved. The factionalization in areas of the White House got better. The mood did not improve. They are not very well staffed. They still can't hire a lot of people. Kelly forgets what he says to one person and says something entirely different to somebody else. We saw that a lot around the Rob Porter issue. He does not entirely empower people. He very much guards sort of the area around the Oval Office and views a lot of people who have their own relationships with the president as an imperiling factor in his command and control structure, which he favors.
So is there, as Anthony Scaramucci just said, a culture of fear and intimidation because of General Kelly?
I mean, I don't know that I would use the word intimidation because I'm not really sure what that's referring to. There is certainly a culture of fear about getting in trouble, getting on someone's bad side. I just think right now you had this moment for basically 2 months after last year where the White House sort of was united, for the most part, people against Steve Bannon, and they were able to tell themselves that was the problem. Prior to that, they were able to say, Reince Priebus, he's the problem. In fact, you know, the problem is the person who sets the tone, and that is the president. And so I heard again last night from some advisors who have departed the White House who said they think that without sort of people who can whisper in the president's ear very effectively, that maybe they'll all be rowing in the same direction in a new way. That's just never what happens.
Hope Hicks, did she jump or was she pushed?
She jumped. I'm sorry, she jumped. I know that that's not a popular thing to say. Well, I'm only apologizing because Twitter seems very upset with that. But look, we go over all of the things that she's enmeshed in, right, in the last several weeks. Because of her proximity to the president, she knows all kinds of things about certain meetings. She has attracted attention from congressional investigators and the special counsel, Robert Mueller. They want to know what she knew about the firing of James Comey. They want to know what she knew about drafting a statement aboard Air Force One in response to our story at the Times about Donald Trump Jr.'s meeting with Russian lawyers promising, quote-unquote, dirt on Hillary Clinton. She is constantly having to manage his moods. She is constantly having to protect other staffers from his moods. And then her personal life became a spectacle because she was dating Rob Porter, the staff secretary, who did resign under pressure over allegations of spousal abuse. When you add all of that up and you think about that fact set, why would somebody want to stay in that job?
Well, except that there are 365 days a year. And so if she had always intended to leave in 2018, why yesterday?
Oh, I don't know that she always intended to leave in 2018, but I know that she had been talking about leaving for a very long time, and she had been planning it ahead of Tuesday's
But I mean,
hearing.
yesterday was just coincidental, or
Yesterday
was the final straw?
Yesterday was coincidental. I mean, the fact that it was yesterday, let me rephrase that. Yesterday had nothing to do with the hearing the day before, if that is what you are asking.
Correlation is not causation.
Correct.
It comes at that time. That was a tough day for her.
Yeah,
she had to
it was.
meet with counsel for about 20
That's
minutes
right.
after she gave the white lies thing.
That's right.
And people have to understand, it's one thing when you're talking to us, as scrutinizing as you can be. But when I'm holding the power to punish you, in a way, for what you say, those are hard moments. Those are hard moments for someone who's new to this.
That's right.
This is, Hope Hicks had a very elevated position with Trump, and her loyalty to him helped garner that. But this is not a battle-tested person who knows how to weather storms.
Very few people know how to weather this kind of storm. If you think about how many White Houses we have seen go through this kind of thing, the only, again, of the spectacle nature of it with the legal underlay, the Clinton White House is the only one that I can think of with respect to something this big that had proximity to the president. I don't think that was an easy day for her, based on everything that I have heard, but that does not mean that was the reason that it happened yesterday. Again, I realize I'm saying you're going to have to trust me on it, but it really is not why it happened. Only she can know if there was some final straw, but the final straw was not that hearing.
Okay, next reality check of Anthony Scaramucci. Is Washington a gold-plated hot tub?
Well, I don't know that it's gold-plated or a hot tub.
I guess what I'm referring to is Jared Kushner. And so, Jared Kushner...
I don't know if he has a gold-plated hot tub either.
I think he does.
Okay.
Because he did get a huge loan from a private equity... Two huge loans from a private equity firm that had several meetings in the White House after the president was already in the Oval Office. Look, who we are told wanted a job. This seems like a quid pro quo of some kind. And so what are you hearing about Jared Kushner's future?
Well, just to answer the question about the loans first, what people who like Jared Kushner say is these are some of the major firms in the country. Of course, they were coming in for meetings. These are not personal loans. This involved his company that he's technically not at anymore. However, to your point about the quid pro quo appearance, we have no way of knowing what took place in those conversations, but this is why elected officials are always cautioned to avoid even the appearance of impropriety. And in previous White Houses, you have had people make more of an effort to try to be careful, to not look as if they are in the middle of something, and this is why, generally speaking, it is best practice not to bring your family into positions like this, especially when there are all of these business entanglements. In terms of his future, my understanding is that Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump are sending out pretty strong signals that they do not plan on going anywhere. The tension between them and Kelly is very, very real. The president is always going to side with family. The president does not want to deal with this security clearance issue. He punted on it very clearly to John Kelly. Jared Kushner's security reportedly was downgraded. The question remains what that means. Can he sort of hang on and still be effective in his job? Will he have to leave the way other far more junior aides had to leave because they could not get top secret?
Well, that's part of the Ides of March theory that's starting to bubble up, is that you can't have Kushner and Kelly in the same house if Kelly really believes that there are legitimate questions about Kushner's conflicts and whether or not he's compromised. Because I have to tell you, Anthony is part right. It's tough to be someone who's in private capital and then come into public service. Divesting isn't simple. But it has been done before. You don't take meetings like that. You don't do it.
You avoid it even if there wasn't an issue. That's right. You just avoid it because we are now having this conversation.
It was even more egregious, you could argue, than what Trump Jr. did with the meeting in Trump Tower with the Russian lawyer. Because he wasn't working for the government. He was in a campaign. He's trying to get dirt just like everybody in campaigns are. This guy's working for the government. He's installed in the White House, and he's taken a meeting like this. If John Kelly allows that to survive, that is a corrosive dynamic for someone like Kelly, who's all about the order of the system.
I think that's right, and I think that Kelly has already had to make a ton of concessions. To your point on sort of comparing the Don Jr. meeting to the Jared Kushner issue, it is correct that Don Jr. Had never done this before, did not sort of know, I think, what the rules were. Kushner has had the ethics rules gone over with him repeatedly now. He has been there for 13 months. He has been there as long as his father-in-law has been there. You do need to be careful in terms of what Kelly is willing to tolerate. When Kelly took that job, remember, he said he would only do it if he had complete control of the staff, and that included Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump. President Trump assured him that he did, but as we know, President Trump does not like giving anyone that much control. And so The question, I think, is not just whether John Kelly can endure it, but what the president is going to try to force on him. And does Kelly decide? Kelly clearly believes that he needs to be there for the sake of protecting the Constitution. He has said that to people. Does he decide that is worth the trade-off?
Maggie Haberman, thank you very much. All right, so we are following some breaking news for you right now because Russian President Vladimir Putin says he has developed and tested a new invincible missile. Are U.S. defenses prepared for this? Congressman Adam Kinzinger is going to join us live with this.
And they come down, and there's all kinds of technology once they re-enter. So maybe invincible, maybe not. We don't know that answer. But look, here's the bottom line. The Russians are a gas tank in Europe. John McCain called them that once, and I thought that was a pretty apropos issue. They have a declining economy, a declining population, and they are desperate right now for any kind of attention. And also, Vladimir Putin's trying to rally his base in order to make sure he wins re-election. So that's why they're doing things like messing with our democracy in terms of getting involved on Facebook and the internet. And that's why we need to push back in the same way.
But so is this just bluster?
It's hard to tell. I mean, he says he has it. I'm sure our intelligence knows if he does or doesn't, if it is or isn't invincible. But I think the big thing to realize, people think that we have this ability to defend against ICBMs. We're testing it. We have the ability maybe to intercept something like a rogue North Korean missile. But there's no way, if the Russians launch all their missiles at us, that we'd be able to defend ourselves and vice versa.
So, I mean, you're on Foreign Affairs Committee. How worrisome is this to you today?
Well, it's always been worrisome when you think about the issue of nuclear weapons because both sides can destroy each other. It's mutual assured destruction, and we know that. But this is why we have to continue to invest in things like missile defense, why we need to ensure that North Korea doesn't get nuclear weapons in order to prevent a nuclear exchange from happening. The good thing about Vladimir Putin, I don't like the guy at all, but he's not suicidal, so he's not going to, try to destroy the United States. And this is why we have to keep our nuclear systems up as well, too.
Is this something that the intel community will confirm to your committee at some point today? Is this
I don't know.
Let's move on to something at home, gun policy. Do you know where the president is today?
You mean like where he is on guns?
Yeah.
No, I don't know. At one point you hear him say he doesn't want to do anything, and the other point it says he wants to do a lot. Here's what I've said. There are some rational things that both sides can take care of. Number one, I do think the purchase age of an AR should be 21 years old.
Just
you have
an
to
AR
be 21 to
or
drink.
all guns?
I don't know. Definitely an AR. The federal government has made it 21 to own a pistol.
Yeah.
I actually think it makes more sense if that would be 18, but I'm fine keeping that at 21. Now, the question is, if a kid wants to go shoot a shotgun or he wants to shoot something else, should he have to be 21? That's debatable. But I do think to buy an AR as a guy that carried basically an M4 version in Iraq, I do think to carry an AR, you should probably be 21. I think the vast majority of Americans agree with that. Let's ban bump stocks. That one's easy. And then if you fix the background check system, those three moves would have mitigated or prevented the last three mass shootings.
So you don't want to see an expanded background check that would be at gun shows, person-to-person sales, those things. You just want to see the fixed NICS.
I'm okay with expanded background checks. Now, the key is, how do you make exceptions for if I'm going to buy my dad's gun, for instance? Do you need to go through the NICS
why not?
system
Why is
for
paperwork
that?
so onerous to everybody?
No, I don't think it is. I don't think it is. I think these are 80% issues, but here's the point. I say this to my side. You can't say we can't do anything. And I say it to the other side, to the left. Don't say we have to do anything short of banning assault rifles we're not going to do. There are 80% issues. Let's say 21, right? A huge number of school shootings happen with somebody who's either in the school currently or just out. So if you make it 21, you take that out of their hands. Fix the background system, ban bump stocks. Bump stocks would have mitigated the massive amount of carnage in Las Vegas, maybe not have prevented everything. Those are good moves we can all make.
Here's what the president has said. Some of the things that he has said. So let me just play those for you and our viewers.
I'm going to write the bump stock, essentially write it out. It doesn't make sense that I have to wait till I'm 21 to get a handgun, but I can get this weapon at 18. I don't know. I like taking the guns early. Take the guns first, go through due process second.
Is it fair to say that if President Obama had said, take the guns first, go through due process second, you would have gone nuts?
I think that is basically fair to assume, yes.
I mean, so is it the Republicans aren't taking the president literally on this stuff?
No, I think we take him literally. We always known this. He's unique in how he says things. And I don't think he's overly ideological. I think everybody around him says, look, he's not somebody that was raised basically a far-right conservative. He believes in conservative principles, but he's not overly ideological.
So that's a negotiating tactic.
I think he's saying, and I think rightfully, that there are some things that are on the table. I think when he says, let's take the guns first, My guess is, I didn't see the whole thing, that he was referring to the issue of how do you keep somebody that has mental health issues that have been reported?
I think he was.
How do you keep them from getting a gun? And I think that makes total sense in terms of how do we write that. But it's not necessarily the most articulate way to say, let's take the guns first and do due process second.
All right, Congressman Adam Kinzinger, thank you very
Anytime.
much for being here with us. Chris.
All right, so Walmart has new rules on buying guns. Who won't be able to get firearms, who won't be able to get ammo, and what type at their stores anymore.
Okay, and then listen to this. Our panel of gun owners taking on some of the proposed policies to stop gun violence, including a ban on bump stocks.
It's not an issue of the gun itself or the weapon itself.
Right.
It's an issue of the individual behind it.
And which individual would want to use a bump stock?
A crazed individual, right?
Why
Who
not
was going
ban
to a
them?
mass shooting?
Why not ban them?
What does that accomplish?
Dick's made a move. Walmart did not.
Yeah, you know what's really interesting here is you've got kids and companies making a move on this. Walmart will no longer sell guns to anyone under 21. The nation's largest retailer said recent events inspired that change, but it will continue to serve sportsmen and hunters in a responsible way. Walmart will also remove products, Chris, that look like assault rifles, like non-lethal airsoft guns and any toys that are meant to model after a modern sporting rifle. Like you said, Walmart's announcement came just hours after Dick's raised its age of sale to 21. Dick's will also stop selling assault-style rifles at any stores that still do. That was, one of the guns used in the Parkland school shooting was an AR-15. It was not purchased at Dick's, although the gunman had purchased weapons at Dick's. Since then, students and consumers have pressured companies to cut ties with the gun industry, forcing many brands to take a stand. More than a dozen businesses now have cut NRA ties, and money managers are now re-examining their investments in gun makers. But corporate activism can be good for business. Consumers sometimes like to buy from companies that tackle social issues, especially young consumers. In fact, even though the stock market closed down yesterday, Dick's finished higher, Allison.
Very interesting, Christine. I mean, very interesting to see what has happened in all of these different arenas in just the past 2 weeks. Thank you very much. So, a hopeful high school baseball player has been turned down by a Texas university because he comes from a state where recreational marijuana is legal. Andy Scholes has more in the Bleacher Report. Explain how this works, Andy.
Saying things that kind of pop eyes on both sides. This time it was about gun control. Listen.
Some of you people are petrified of the NRA. You can't be petrified. In your bill, what are you doing about the 18 to 21?
We didn't address. We don't change that.
Okay, are you going to leave that? Because you're afraid of the NRA, right? Now, this is not a popular thing to say in terms of the NRA, but I'm saying it anyway. It doesn't make sense that I have to wait till I'm 21 to get a handgun, but I can get this weapon at 18. I don't know. I like taking the guns early. Take the guns first, go through due process second. If you add concealed carry to this, you'll never get it passed.
All right, one person who attended that White House meeting is Florida Congressman Ted Deutsch. His district includes Parkland, Florida, the site of the school massacre, and that's where he is this morning. Congressman, thank you for joining us.
Of course. Good morning, Chris.
How is the mood where you are this morning?
Well, I just got back late last night. I'm going to head over to the school from here. Yesterday was the first day back in school. It was really challenging for the kids going back to school and for the families, but I think it was also really helpful for everyone to be together again.
All right, so where are you in terms of your feelings about what we witnessed yesterday with the president? Is this new ground? Is this him taking on previously hardened agendas? Or do you think it is an immigration televised meeting redux where we're going to hear one thing and then see nothing?
Well, Chris, I think that it's pretty clear now that the ground is really shifting on this issue. If you look at the poll numbers that show overwhelming support for universal background checks and the other things the president talked about, as well as ridding our communities of assault rifles. But if you look at the polling, if you look at the actions taken by major corporations in response to the pressure put on them, these student leaders are having an impact, and that's what you saw from the president yesterday. I think his focus on universal background checks, the way that every discussion shifted back to Manchin-Toomey and how do we get that and how do we add the 18 to 21 on it, We're going to ban bump stocks, the president said. We talked about school safety issues. We talked about mental health issues. And the president said he wants something that has overwhelming support. So universal background checks would be that bill. It would be an enormous step forward.
Universal background checks, so private sales, gun show sales. Do you think that that is likely?
Well, I think that there is growing pressure to take meaningful action. That's what we've heard over and over from these student leaders. That's what we've heard around the country. The polling in Florida speaks to that. The overwhelming majority of people want action, and 97% of people think we should pass universal background checks. So when the president looked at my colleagues from the House and Senate and told them, essentially, don't be afraid of the NRA, he's right. This is an issue at this moment about not just school safety. It's about public safety. It's about keeping our kids safe. And I think that's the side of this issue people not only need to be on, it's the side of this issue I think they have to be on.
Well, look, have to is a defined term, right? Because a lot, with all due respect, a lot in Washington doesn't get done out of conscience. It gets done out of consequence. And you know that these single-issue voters on the gun rights side will come out and vote. And yes, the president said, you guys are afraid of the NRA, but he's the one who just met with them and came away from the meeting saying, hey, they want to do something with us. The NRA wants to do something. Since when does a lobbying group dictate the policy preference of a president? But that's his side. Your side is, will the Democrats do fix NICS without universal checks? Will they do changes that don't include an assault weapons ban?
Yeah, no, Chris, I think, with all due respect, you're falling back into the usual discussion that we have after these things. People are talking about fixed NICS because it's a bill that even the NRA supports. That's why everyone looks at that. The President of the United States yesterday talked about doing something comprehensive, something big. He talked about universal background checks, and he can provide cover to people who are uncomfortable doing it. Even in that room yesterday, for all of the people, there were a few times where some of the senators joked, oh, it's hard to get 60 votes. The president is the person who can push. He can lead on this issue if he chooses to. I don't know that he's going to. I'm well aware
That's
of what
the big question. That's why I'm asking you. I get that things have changed in terms of public momentum. I see the polls. I report on them every morning. That doesn't mean that those same people would go out and reward and punish candidates on the basis of their position here. That is a political calculation. We don't know where that is yet.
Well, I appreciate you bringing that up. We always hear about single-issue voters on guns. Well, I'm going to tell you something, Chris. There are more and more single-issue voters, Democrats and Republicans, for whom keeping kids safe is their priority. Making our communities safer so that people don't have to worry, moms don't have to worry that when they send their kids off to school in the morning, they might not come home. That, for so many people now, is becoming the single issue. That's why this is such a growing and really potent political force. And that political force is what ultimately is going to cause people, hopefully with the president's support, cause those Republicans in that room yesterday to go along with something significant that includes universal background checks.
Look, I hear you, Congressman, and everybody who respects the democracy should want it to be influenced by the people who come out to the polls and vote to get what they want out of their representatives. I'm just saying we've been here before. It is different. It is different. But let's see what actions are taken, and then it will be truly different. Congressman, thank you for your perspective. You're always welcome on the show.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate it.
All right. A lot of big news, some of it made right here on this show. So what do you say? It's Thursday. Let's get after it.
A friend of his said he's going to go into a tailspin without her around.
What we've seen from the very beginning of this administration is nothing but chaos.
I don't think she was forced out. There's a shelf life working in the West Wing.
You're seeing Jared Kushner meeting with executives in the White House, and then the companies are giving very sizable mortgages to his company.
Whose business is he doing when he's in the White House?
Jared Kushner simply cannot continue in his present role.
Some of you people are petrified of the NRA. If you add concealed carry to this, you'll never get it passed.
Mr. President, it's going to have to be you that brings the Republicans to the table on this.
We need to act.
This is New Day with Chris Cuomo and Allison Camerata.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to your new day. It is Thursday, March 1st, 8 o'clock in the East. So 2 days of chaos in the White House. One of the president's closest aides, White House Communications Director Hope Hicks, is resigning. She's still there, but she will soon be gone. A source tells CNN that the president berated her for admitting to lawmakers that she tells, quote, white lies, end quote, on his behalf. Adding to this turmoil, President Trump attacking his own attorney general very publicly again for how he's handling allegations of surveillance abuses. And the Washington Post reports that special counsel Robert Mueller is looking into the president's efforts to force Sessions out last summer.
And there's more. Jared Kushner has heat on him. The president's son-in-law is now facing a damning report in the New York Times that says he secured hundreds of millions of dollars in loans for his family business after taking meetings with financial executives at the White House. The key here is the timing. Now, moments ago, we spoke about all this West Wing chaos, whether it's real, with former White House Communications Director Anthony Scaramucci. Listen to what he says about morale at the White House. Remember, this is a man with zero interest in saying something that is just hollow in its negativity of the president. He says morale is a real problem. Listen.
Well, I think it's a big departure in the sense that this is one of the president's closest friends, aides, loyalists, somebody that understands the heartbeat of the president, understands his personality, and also is, you know, she's incredibly good at guiding people. And I will tell you this about Hope. And Washington's a rough place. We both know that. There's not a malicious bone in Hope's body. I mean, she's just a wonderful person, always trying to do the right thing, cares about everybody, not interested in the conflict, not interested in the ego rub.
On the negative side, well, she says that she did tell some lies for the president. She said that there was no communications between anyone from Trump and Russians. She, underplayed the situation with that meeting and the drafting of the response there, too. The Rob Porter thing was a debacle of epic proportions.
So let's unpack each one of those things. Okay, but let's start with the white lie. So I would submit to your viewers or anybody in America or around the world, tell me the person that hasn't told a white lie. I'll identify that person as the biggest liar in the room. And so here's what happens in Washington that I absolutely can't stand. She's in a closed-door session. They're asking her stuff. It's under oath. You know how important that is. So do I. The integrity of every sentence, every syllable. They ask her if she told any white lies. She said yes, probably. I don't know. I wasn't there. And then they pick up the phone, Chris, and they drop a dime on her. Okay, it's just totally unfair. It's a closed session and in strict confidence. And so now they're trying to colorize this woman who's an extremely gifted professional as a liar. And so I submit it back to everybody else. Hold a mirror to your face and tell me that you haven't told a white lie, because I don't believe it. Okay,
and you think she was one of the good ones. I get it.
Great. High integrity,
but what
very
about the
good
Rob
person.
Porter situation? She should have known.
If
I'm involved with this guy, I can't be involved.
I hold the White House chief of staff accountable for that.
Kelly, you hold accountable.
No question, because he had the information related to Porter, and I don't understand why he would allow Hope to date Porter if he's got that information.
How can she keep him from dating?
No. My point is, come on. He had the information. He tried to cover up the information. He tried to get other people inside the White House to cover up the information for him.
You believe Kelly covered up the information about the...
I do.
Because that's not what the White House says. The White House says as soon as he found out, he acted on it.
Right. Well, I don't believe that.
Is that another white lie?
Well, you got to ask him. Have him sit in the white chair and ask him if it's a white lie or not. You'll be able to figure it out quickly. But, the Rob Porter situation for me, I liked Rob. I've been asked even by the president, did I see any of that indication in Rob? I didn't. But there was an FBI dossier on Rob, and people knew about it. And so, look.
So how does Kelly survive then? Why was he allowed? Why didn't he get the berating that Hope Hicks got?
This is how it works, okay? It's going to be up for the president to decide that, okay? I guess he's an honorable Marine, and so he's got to look at himself in the mirror and say what he knew and when he knew it. But I'll tell you what I don't like about it, okay? I talked a little bit of smack about two guys that we were trying to get rid of. He fires me in 5 seconds. These guys are smacking up their wives, and he's trying to figure out a way to keep them inside the White House. So It's very dishonest to me.
So is it personal? Is it a personal grievance that's motivating you, or do you think, as a matter of honor and duty, Kelly needs to go?
It's a cultural grievance because I've sat in this white chair with you over the 6 months after he fired me and said nothing but good things about him. I have no problem with him firing me. Everybody has an opportunity and the right to change their staff, particularly when they're the chief of staff. But this is a cultural thing. Okay, the morale inside the White House, you're a great reporter. You've got great reporters on staff here. The morale's terrible. And the reason why the morale's terrible is that the rule by fear and intimidation does not work in a civilian environment. And so here we are. It's messed up. It'll be up to the president to figure out if he wants to fix it or not. If he doesn't,
well, the question is whether or not the president is contributing to the turmoil.
I predict more departures.
You do believe that we should be open to more people leaving the administration?
If the current situation and the current culture inside the administration stays exactly the way it is, right, there's literally no change, there will be a lot more departures. Yeah, the morale is at an all-time low, and it's trending lower.
All right, let's bring in CNN politics reporter and editor-at-large Chris Cillizza and CNN political analyst Joshua Green. It's good to have you both, gentlemen. So, we know Anthony Scaramucci well, so do you. He is completely not inclined to say anything negative about the president. Okay, that's not where he's coming from. Right. He's not a critic. So for him to say that morale is bad and getting worse, that it is destabilizing and putting meat on the bones of this Ides of March notion that you're going to see more people leave the White House, that is remarkable.
Agree, because he has his enemies, Steve Bannon, Reince Priebus, John Kelly, it sounds like from your interview with him, Chris. But Donald Trump is not one of them. Anthony Scaramucci knows where his bread is buttered at the end of the day, and criticizing Donald Trump is not something he does. But I do think his comments are worth noting for that reason, because there is a sense, I think people say Hope Hicks staffer. There is a sense, though, that this is one of the only originals left who were with him in June 2015, and someone who's not family, who he trusts, and who has showed total loyalty to him. The less of those people, the more likely you get the Trump isolated, Trump angry, Trump tweeting even more and more nasty than he has. And the more unpredictable he is, the more dangerous he is to the Republican Party, its prospects in 2018, and to himself, politically speaking.
What's your reporting say about what the morale is inside the White House?
In speaking to people in the White House last night, that is exactly how Trump was. Angry, upset, furious. I mean, the people I talked to said they've never seen things this bad. And it's stunning from the standpoint of, we were accustomed to this 6 months ago, 8 months ago, a year ago. But John Kelly was brought in to, assert order and hierarchy and to tamp this stuff down. And everybody I talked to last night, to a man, said that things are absolutely out of control.
And by the way, add to the fact that Jared Kushner is, I don't want to say it's an untenable position, but his job overseeing the Middle East peace process, such as it is, liaisoning with China and Mexico, I'm not sure you can do that job as currently constituted with the security clearance he now has, the downgraded security clearance. If Jared Kushner goes, he's never going to leave the Trump orbit because he is married to Donald Trump's daughter. But if he goes, if that pulls Ivanka away in the nearer term from the White House, now you don't even have those family connections, because Don Jr. and Eric Trump obviously are handling the business and not involved in the political end of Donald Trump's life. Now you have you have Dan Scavino, essentially, who's an original. And that's just not, I think, going to be enough for someone who's always dependent on that small group, mostly family, to rely.
But why do you assume that Jared Kushner has to go? Doesn't it make more sense that General Kelly would go?
Well, I mean, that's ultimately up to the president. I mean, Scaramucci, I was just talking to the Green one. I said, wow, you're really sticking knives in Kelly's back. He said, no, I'm sticking knives in his front. And I think that's a sign that, there's a real effort out there. And this has been ongoing for weeks now since the Rob Porter scandal among a certain faction of Trump loyalists to try and make that happen, to push out
John
Kelly.
At times we know that Donald Trump has sort of lost favor with.
Well, we do, but on the other hand,
General Kelly.
But on the other hand, he said publicly, Trump did, look, it's up to Kelly who he wants to downgrade when it comes to security clearances, and gave him tacit permission to downgrade Jared Kushner.
This is bad for me. Let me give it to somebody else, but then I'll just come in and weigh in.
Do what I want
when it suits me. I mean, look, on one level, I can get the frustration from people in hearing this. This is like a soap opera. It just feels like every time we have one of these episodes, we need to end with one of these people with one of those frozen faces on the soap opera.
Dun, dun, dun.
But it's called As the Stomach Turns.
That's good. But on the other side, why do we care? Because this is going to have a direct effect on what gets done for the American people.
I think that that's really important. And it's not about he doesn't like this one or he depended on that one. It's about the President of the United States, how he views institutions. We haven't talked about Jeff Sessions, but how he views institutions, how he treats his top law enforcement official, how he views the relationship between the Justice Department and the White House.
Look, and how do you know that this Ides of March thing, again, it's not mine. I'm using it because I like it. But it's, this is this notion of, well, if Kelly goes, McMaster may be like, well, that was my affinity, and if that's the way we're going, I'm not here either. You do the same things to me, you're doing to Kelly, then he's gone.
Or Mattis or Tillerson.
That's right. And if Jeff Sessions keeps getting beaten up and said, you know what, I don't need this anymore, I'm going to leave, one after another, this is a problem.
Well, it is, and this is actually one problem the White House is going to confront right now in figuring out who's going to replace Hope Hicks.
Yeah.
Before she came in, basically because they couldn't find an attractive communications director who was willing to come into fourth or fifth.
Well,
depends how you count Jason.
Jason Miller was the asterisk.
But essentially, she was a necessity because they couldn't get somebody else to come in. I mean, she came in, she did a good job. Trump obviously trusted her, but the problem is still there of people don't want to come into this White House.
Well, if the job is comms, they'll find somebody. If it's Trump whisperer, that's a tough job to fill.
Well, that's an impossible job to fill. But even in the comms job, it's difficult to impossible because Trump considers himself his own communications director. Right. If he doesn't like the tenor of news coverage, he will lash out at that person. And if you're a Republican operative, you got to look ahead to November and expect this is going to be ugly. There are going to be big losses. Trump is going to lash out. Why do I want to hop on board now, 6 months before that bloodbath, and be part of the crew that's blamed for that? I'll just hang back and let somebody else take that.
And the reality is, there is no replacement for Hope Hicks in the Trump universe. There just isn't. They're going to hire someone to be the communications director. They will find someone, though Josh's point is well taken. It's not easy because a lot of people who are potentials for that don't want to go into it. But it's the replacing of someone that he never listens to anyone all the time, or I think probably most of the time, but someone that he trusted, who he believed had his best interests at heart, who always put him first rather than that person. There's not a person you find on the street or in the Republican sort of political firmament that does that, right? There is a reason that there was a small, motley-ish crew in June 2015, because everyone was laughing at